Howdy everybody, what's up? My name is Sabina, I'm the Left-Handed Alchemist, and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you guys how I make the prickly pear symbols pendant. It's pretty fun, pretty cool. I kind of walk you through how to do it. It's more of a tutorial style video. I am missing some footage, so oops. I'm gonna do my best to verbally explain what I did, but there's no visual proof of what I did, and it's fine. You know, this whole recording what I'm doing thing is a learning curve that I'm still figuring out. I don't know if you guys know, but recording while you're also trying to work and like be in your workflow is kind of difficult. Sometimes you just like forget and you get into the project and you end up finishing it without recording a whole bunch of it. So it is what it is, but I hope you guys learned something. Let me know if you like this kind of content. I'm still figuring out what I'm doing here. Philosophy or build videos? Both? Should they be on separate channels? Let me know what you think. Anyway, let's get into it. Alright, so let's get into this. First things first, we're gonna glue on the template that we're gonna cut out. So I use rubber cement, Elmer's rubber cement. It's affordable. You can find it just about anywhere. I mean, really, like Walmart, Target, probably not a gas station, but you know, it's very accessible. We're gonna goop it on there, and then we're gonna put our template that we cut out so that there's not like a ton of excess paper on there, and we're just gonna I use my fingernails to burnish it down to get all the excess glue out from under it, but also all the air bubbles, because you want there to be a pretty solid seal so that when you're cutting it out with your saw, the paper's not like floating around. So I just get it really secure on there. I believe that I am gluing it down to 22 gauge metal. It's either 20 or 22. It doesn't really matter. It kind of just depends on what your project is and what metal you have and how thick you want it to be. I kind of like a heavier piece, so I'll do like a 20 or 22 gauge top and then like an 18 gauge back, but we'll get into that. There's quite a few clips that I'm actually missing, and I think I mentioned that in the intro, so I'm sorry about that, but I'm just a girl, okay, you guys? I'm just a girl. So you want to make sure that that template is on there really good, and you can use any kind of paper. Honestly, I think I'm using brown masking paper from like the hardware store, but you can use white paper, brown paper, green paper, just any kind of paper you have on hand. So while that's drying, I'm going to go and solder the ring that is kind of the border that frames the prickly pear. I dip it in a solution of denatured alcohol and boric acid. I feel like that is my favorite kind of like pre-flux thing. So then I only have to put the batter's flux on the joint where I'm actually soldering, but then the whole piece is protected from fire scale. It could be poisonous. I'm using a fume extractor. So user beware. Maybe do your research on how bad these chemicals are. I choose to live in ignorance half the time, if I'm being completely honest. While those are pickling, I'm going to saw out the prickly pear. I have a template that I just trace so I can make infinite amounts of these. It's my goal to maybe do a bunch of these as made to order for you guys. I'm sure whoever's watching this is honestly also a jeweler and you're trying to learn something, because that's kind of how these videos go, but I'm happy you're here anyway, you know. We saw it out. We saw out the piece, and I'm speeding it up because it's a lot, you know, it's a lot to watch somebody saw out a piece of metal. Like, it takes time. You're going to break saw blades. Make sure that your saw frame is even up and down and that you're using lubricant. I'm using a chunk of paraffin wax from a candle. I would recommend beeswax, though. I think that's my preferred lubricant of choice, but I just don't have any right now, so that's what I'm using. Just carefully cutting out the design, you know. Now that that is all cut out, I sand it with just a piece of like 220 grit sandpaper that you can't see because it's in the tray of my bench, and I didn't realize that you couldn't see it until right now. I just hit it with the top and the bottom of that, and it just like smooths out the surface and shows me what scratches I need to take out and kind of what my edges are looking like. Because then I go in with a file and clean up the edges. I'm using a diamond file right here, and then I think later in the process I'm using like a fatty German file that I don't know the name of. I don't think it's the fancy Galorp one, but I do wish I had a whole set of Galorp files, and if that's not how you say it, someone should correct me in the comments. Now that that is all sanded, you can see now it is like 3 steps ahead, because I simply got into it and I was feeling good and I was making stuff and I was just like in the flow, you know how it goes, and I didn't record it. So what I ended up doing is shaping that ring that we soldered at the beginning into the shape you see and sanding the bottom so that it's semi-flat, like flat enough that it's flush with whatever you're going to want to solder it onto. And then I solder it onto an 18 gauge piece of metal, and that kind of creates the pendant. Like, as you can see now, I am sawing out the excess. You want the bottom piece of your metal, basically, like for a style like this, you want it to be bigger than the frame so that you have a little room. I don't know if you have any experience with soldering, sometimes things float and move around, and so you want a little bit of margin for error, because you can always cut out the excess and then file off anything that you don't want to be there, which is what I'm going to do right now, is I'm filing with my big fancy German file. And you just kind of, like, now it's just finishing work. It's all the finishing work, you know. You file the edges until you feel like they're filed. And then I go in with a bunch of different sanding wheels, snap-on coarse grit and then fine grit, like sanding disc. And then I love those 3M bristle discs, but I'm cheap and I love saving money. And so I found the Amazon version. Not the same colors to grits as the 3M ones, but if you're careful, it does the same thing. You just don't want to put too much pressure on it or you'll start gouging your metal. But, you know, I highly recommend dupes. I'm not a purist, you know. I'm sorry, 3M, but unless you want to give me money to make videos, I'm not a loyalist. I will do what I need to do to make the things I want to make affordably. So, yeah. Okay, now we're getting into the engraving, and I just completely did not show you guys how to solder on the bale or how I finish my work. Part of that is like a secret because I've developed this method over years, but I'm going to let you in on the secret a little bit because we're all going to do it differently, and gatekeeping isn't cool, and I feel like it's rooted in like a lack mindset. So let's get into it. The bale is super simple. It's 3 different jump rings. The first jump ring is like a really small one that is soldered directly onto the top of the pendant. You'll see in the final clips of this video, I'll show you like the final product and you'll see how that's kind of oriented on there. But then it's 2 bigger jump rings that fit the chain and the chain clasp that goes onto this pendant eventually, so that it can be taken off and like interchanged as the wearer of this pendant sees fit. Because I don't know about you guys, I personally like to mix and match my chains depending on like what kind of set I have on. So that is an option for you guys. Then with finishing, I finish everything by hand with those sanding wheels and discs that I showed you guys earlier. But then I also finish everything with a tumbler. I use a Luritone rotating tumbler, just like the rock tumbler that a lot of us use. You could probably use a Harbor Freight one as well. You could probably use a vibration tumbler as well. Just kind of depends on what you have and what you want to do. I use these pink and blue cones that I got from an ex-boyfriend's mom who also made jewelry like almost a decade ago. I'm still using the same cones, but I do think I found them to replace them on Rio. So I'll leave the link for those down in the description for anybody who's interested. I let those tumble for like, not even joking, like somewhere between 8 to 14 hours. I just put them on the tumbler, like in the tumbler, and let them go overnight while I sleep. And then I change out the tumbler in the morning whenever, whatever. And I've done a test on this before, like checking every hour, and I really do feel like the 10-hour mark is really when things start to look good, but by 12 hours it's perfect, and then 14 is just because I forgot about it because I couldn't hear my tumbler in my studio from where I was working. And you know, like I said before, I'm just a girl, so it's not the end of the world if it tumbles a little longer than, you know, whatever. It's not the end of the world. Jewelry is quite forgiving. I like the surface finish of the cutting tumble. It kind of makes everything really even and nice in a way that I don't think hand finishing can offer. And then to really bring back the shine, because it is kind of a more matte finish with the cutting tumble or media, however you say that. I then tumble for like an hour to 3 hours to, I don't really like doing it more than like 2 to 3 hours. I feel like it gets a weird pitted surface. I'll tumble it with steel shot and just like soap. I feel like that gives everything like a good final clean, and it brings back that shininess that, you know, I personally like, but it's not a high polished finish. It's like a shiny silver, but not high polished, because I don't like high polishing. I feel like it is me chasing my tail and then getting angry by the end. But if you are a high polisher, like, more power to you. I respect the hustle, because it's freaking hard to get a good high polish on a piece of jewelry. I don't know. Then I hand engrave. I learned how to hand engrave about a year ago, and I have been trying to figure out how to incorporate it into the work that I already make, and that's kind of how the symbols collection was born, honestly, was mixing my drawings and my jewelry skills together, because I'm also an illustrator. I don't know, I'm like an artist. I've been drawing since I could hold a crayon, so I have always really sought to combine the mediums that I like to use, and drawing is the OG medium. And so being able to draw on my metal now is just like returning to home. Basically, it feels right. It feels very good. I'm using the Steve Lindsay air graver setup, and I don't know what kind of graver I'm using. It's some kind of carbide graver that, honestly, when I took a class for engraving, they sharpened this graver for me, and it's the same one because you don't really break graver tips when you're just engraving silver. So it's the same one. I think it's a 105 geometry, if anybody cares. It's a carbide engraver from Steve Lindsay's website. So if you want to buy it, you can. And then I'm also using an Amscope microscope to engrave in that you can't see. And I think the ball vise is just like a cheap, it's not Vivor, but it's like that same kind of, not GRS quality, but like gets the job done. And then the turntable my husband actually made, it's like an old sawed off, the word that I'm looking for is a drill press table thing. Like, we got a short drill press from somebody on Facebook Marketplace. I think you can buy it new from Harbor Freight. I don't know if they carry the style anymore, but we found it for like $100 on Facebook Marketplace. Cut off the actual drill off the top, and then it's just like the turntable and the base of the drill press. I can show you guys more of that in detail if you care. And then husband redid the turntable so that it moves a little smoother. I don't know about you guys, but the GRS satellite is expensive. Is it worth it? Yeah, it is. It's really stable and it's really nice, but we already dropped mad coin on all of the microscopes and the engraver setup, so we thought maybe we would save some money until get the job done. Like, you don't have to buy the fancy GRS thing to get the job done. GRS has a corner on the market anyway. No disrespect, but also, like, people need to rise up and make tools so that it can be more accessible. So yeah, that's that. I engrave it. I think it takes me about 45 minutes to do all the engraving and the stippling of the background, and then I don't show you guys inking. I just forgot to record it, honestly. And I ink with like a Rust-Oleum oil-based paint, and I dilute it with acetone, and I use a Q-tip to push it into the background and into all the engraved designs. And then I use like polishing paper and a polishing cloth to take off the excess paint. I use the other side of the Q-tip to kind of wipe off the excess, and then I let it sit. I like to let it sit in the sun, let it bake. Just let that paint like cure and dry before you really end up taking the excess off, so that you don't scrape off any ink that you were not intending to scrape off. And then it's done. I just put it on a chain, and I could wear it, but this is for you guys. This is for y'all. So I made this collection, and I'm excited about it, and I hope you enjoyed watching this and listening to me ramble. And let me know if you want any more tutorials, because they're easy and fun, and maybe I'll get better at actually recording all of it as time goes on, and we could watch this improvement happen together. So thanks for being here. I hope you learned something. Let me know if you make this design or something similar. I'd love to see. Tag me on Instagram. Okay, bye. Okay, so here's the actual finished product. As you can see, the ink dries really nice and black. I think it looks better than liver of sulfur. Once again, not a purist. We do what we do to get by and make things look good, okay? So there it is, all done. Thanks so much for watching. That was a fun time. I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you want to support this channel, you can like and subscribe and do all the things. Leave a comment if you enjoyed that. If you have any questions, I'll get around to answering them. If you want to support this channel, you can follow me on Instagram. You can also buy this pendant. It is part of my symbols collection, which is a made-to-order collection of necklaces that have different imagery on them that is designed to help you connect to the deepest parts of yourself. They're all made to order. You can choose to purchase one with a chain or without a chain. It's kind of up to you, whatever you prefer. There's a bunch of different designs. You can find the link for that down in the description. I feel like this is like obvious. If you made it this far and you're still watching, don't copy my designs. Be respectful. I'm teaching you my knowledge. And if I find this design out on the interwebs, I'm coming for you. I'm coming for you. So I'll just leave that there. Most of you guys are nice and kind and not copycat losers, but there might be one guy out there who's looking to be a copycat loser. If you want to, you know, copy the design for your own educational purposes, that's one thing, but, you know, be respectful. Don't sell it. You know, I work really hard to develop these designs, and that's part of my fear of putting this kind of content out there, is that you guys are going to rip it and make more money than me. And I guess if you can make more money than me, like, more power to you, but also, like, sad, because it's my intellectual property. So, you know, that's the world we live in a little bit. So be kind. Just general rule of thumb, be kind, be respectful. And I will see you in the next one. Until then, toodaloo.